If you search online or listen to popular commentary, you'll often hear people talk about the Book of Enoch as though it's one ancient scroll, a single manuscript packed with secrets about angels, giants, and the end of the world. But this is where the confusion starts. Many assume that it is a straightforward book with a beginning, middle, and an end. But in reality, what we call the Book of Enoch is not one book at all, but a collection of 5 distinct writings. These include the Book of the Watchers. This is perhaps the most well-known section, which tells of the descent of the angels who corrupted humanity, and the rise of the Nephilim, and the divine judgment which followed. It sets the stage for much of Enoch's history as a prophet and visionary. The Book of Parables is a series of visions which prophesy the coming of the Son of Man, the Messiah, who will bring justice to the world. The astronomical book contains a detailed account of the movements of the sun, moon, stars, and seasons. It shows a divinely ordered universe that reflects a heavenly design and maker. The Dream Visions is the 4th section of the Book of Enoch, which contains a retelling of the story of Israel, from creation to the final judgment. It is important historically because it helps us understand how certain early Jewish groups interpreted Scripture and gives insight into the ideas and symbols that shaped their beliefs. And finally, the Epistle of Enoch, which is a set of instructions, blessings, and warnings addressed to the righteous and the wicked, offering moral guidance and describing how the chosen ones will be blessed in the future. As you can see, each section has a different focus, from angelic rebellion and heavenly courtrooms to detailed calendars, symbolic dreams, and moral guidance. But this begs the question, if this book is so complex and spiritually rich, why was it removed from the Bible? The answer might surprise you. One of the most common misconceptions about the Book of Enoch is the idea that it was removed from the Bible. This suggests that it once held a place among the canonical books and was later hidden or purposely left out by church authorities. However, the truth is that the Book of Enoch was never universally recognized as part of the biblical canon in the first place. While it was indeed known and read in the early centuries of the church, and even quoted directly in the Bible, it was never granted canonical status by the majority of Christian traditions. But why? The early church fathers were aware of the text. Some, like Tertullian, were respectful of its contents, while others viewed it with caution, concerned about its authenticity and history. As the traditional Western canon began to develop, particularly in the 4th or 5th centuries, the Book of Enoch simply did not meet the criteria being applied to the sacred scriptures across the wider Christian world. But this does not mean it vanished. It was kept quietly, faithfully, by a tradition that understood its value. Because another important misunderstanding about its history is that the Book of Enoch was lost, a forgotten text that mysteriously disappeared from the pages of church history, only to be rediscovered in modern times like some spiritual relic. But in truth, it was never truly lost. While Enoch did disappear from the Western Church, mainly due to different debates about canonical texts, the decline of Greek usage, and other arguments, it remained fully intact within one ancient church, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. As one of the oldest Christian communities in the world that has lasted till this day, the Ethiopian Church not only preserved the Book of Enoch, but actually kept it as part of its biblical canon. It may have faded in memory from much of Western Christianity, but in Ethiopia it remained a living document, copied, read, and revered for over 2 millennia. And the preservation of this text is no small feat. The Ethiopian church traces its Christian roots back to the time of the apostles and the Ethiopian eunuch mentioned in Acts chapter 8. The Book of Enoch was read, copied, and translated into Ge'ez, the ancient language of Ethiopia, long after it had faded from view elsewhere. So when European scholars rediscovered the text in the 18th and 19th centuries, first through Ethiopian manuscripts and later through fragments found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, they were not uncovering a forgotten legendary book. They were catching up with a tradition that had quietly protected it for centuries. Now that we've heard how it survived, we must ask another question. What exactly is the Book of Enoch? Is it truly just about fallen angels and the end of the world? Or is there more waiting to be discovered? For many, the Book of Enoch brings up a very specific and often sensational image. A dramatic tale filled with rebellious angels descending to earth, giants roaming the land, and fiery visions of the final judgment. But this would be reducing Enoch to little more than an apocalyptic book with very little depth. This book is also a profound theological work, rich with moral reflections, insights into the heavens, and visionary writings that shaped the worldview of ancient Jews and early Christians alike. In its pages are meditations on the justice and patience of God, the corruption of mankind through forbidden knowledge, and what happened to the angels who overstepped the boundaries set by God. We see Enoch taken on a guided tour of the heavens, observing the storehouses of the winds, the movements of the stars, and the divine mechanisms that govern time and seasons. There are also vivid prophetic visions of the coming of the Son of Man, of a righteous few preserved from judgment, and the final reward for the faithful, and the eternal separation for the wicked. There are parables, astronomical teachings, dream interpretations, and more. To focus only on the dramatic side of Enoch is to miss the devotional aspect of it and the prophetic one. And this leads us to yet another concern. If Enoch has such a dramatic side to it, surely it must conflict with the Bible, right? Let's examine that claim. Given the vivid imagery and supernatural themes in the Book of Enoch, it's not uncommon for readers to wonder whether it stands at odds with biblical scripture. After all, how could a book filled with heavenly secrets, cosmic judgment, and angelic rebellion possibly coexist with the Bible we know and trust? But here's the amazing thing. The Book of Enoch, despite being unfamiliar to many Christians today, is deeply similar to canonical books. The message it contains about the corruption of the earth, the warnings against wickedness, the divine judgment of God, and the hope of the righteous are things that are found in Scripture. They echo through Genesis, Isaiah, Daniel, the Psalms, all the way down to Revelation. When Enoch describes the watchers, the angels who left their heavenly posts, it's building upon the short and cryptic account in Genesis chapter 6. When it speaks of the Son of Man coming with power and glory to judge the nations, it parallels the vision Daniel receives in Daniel chapter 7. Even the Epistle of Jude directly quotes from the Book of Enoch, affirming its familiarity and influence within early Christian circles. So instead of being contradictory, Enoch often provides context, giving greater depth and clarity to certain passages of Scripture that otherwise seem mysterious or missing information. So the Book of Enoch is not a threat to Scripture. It is a lens through which we can more clearly see the spiritual concerns of the ancient world. We don't need to be afraid of it. We don't need to sensationalize it. We simply need to approach it with discernment. And perhaps the most important question is not whether the Book of Enoch belongs in the canon, but whether we're missing something valuable by overlooking it. In this video, we touched on how the Book of Enoch was preserved by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. But it is only one of many forgotten texts that form the 81-book Ethiopian Bible. Watch this video next to learn all about this incredibly important piece of history.